Hey guys, welcome back to our Blender to HitFilm Masterclass. Last time we went through the user interface and learned the various modes and panels we're going to be using throughout this class. Be sure to check out that first tutorial if you haven't already. Today we're actually going to be making the basics for our cargo container, learning how to shape, move and model, then begin using a method called cube projection for our texturing, for which you're going to be needing this texture, which is available to download down in the description. Let's begin with the basics of shaping a model. When starting any project in Blender, you tend to delete everything from the default. This cube, light and camera. This can be done by selecting all with A followed by X to delete. Not that there's much difference, but we want to be adding our own assets. Let's start off with a cube. But wait, we just deleted it. If we press Shift and A, it'll bring up the add menu. And once we enter the mesh tab, we can select ourselves a cube. I like to keep my objects on the surface of the perspective grid, so to do this we'll need to move it on the Z axis. This can be done by pressing G and then Z. A quick tip is to use values to move your objects. This keeps everything nice and clean. As the default cube is a 2x2 meter cube, I'll need to half the distance. 1. Again, that's G to move, Z for the axis, then the value that you want to move, in this case 1. Cargo containers are an easy rectangular shape, so let's stretch our cube. Select the cube and press S for scale, followed by Y to alter it on the Y axis. You can go ahead and do this freehand if you like, but like before, I'll use a value to keep it neat. Let's say 3. With a shape set, let's go ahead and add a material. First, let's switch our viewer mode by hitting Z and selecting Material Preview. This will show us a quick low-res material output and let us see what we're adding. Be sure to have your model selected and head on over to the material icon. Select New to generate a material for us to work with. Let's first give it a rename in the tab provided, Container Texture. Then head into the icon besides Base Color. Hitting this brings up a menu of options for materials, types and inputs. We're going to be using an image texture. At first it doesn't look like it's done anything, but we now have these icons. If we click the folder icon, we can now go and find our material map wherever we saved it. And again, link in the description if you haven't got it already. Once added, you should get this weird layout. This is Blender taking a guess at the layout, and now we have to realign it. Create a new window by going left of the editor tab till a crosshair reveals itself, and drag it open until you have a 50-50 split. In this new window we want to view our material, so hit the editor type and change this to View V Editor. It may appear blank at first, waiting for us to activate the material. By hitting the browse icon it will allow us to load up any existing materials, so let's grab our container material. To realign our model we'll need to enter edit mode. Hover above the 3D viewport window and hit Tab on the keyboard. We can see the unwrap of our cube displayed on the UV editor. Now switch the selection mode to faces. Press A to select all of your model's faces, and then U to bring up the UV mapping options. We're going to go ahead with cube projection. You'll notice the faces all now have that stretched version of the whole material. What this has done is taken each face and, like the name suggests, projected the material onto it. So if we select just one face, it will highlight it on the UV editor window. We can adjust the projection using the vertex points. You can use the icons up top to change from vertex, edges and faces, with move, scale and rotation as you would in object edit mode. Starting off with this face, I think I'll make this one the door. Highlight all your points and use S to scale down and G to move it into position. Make sure to align all the edges with the door texture. I'll repeat this technique with the other sides. For symmetry, when altering the sides, grab both faces by pressing and holding Shift while selecting. This will allow you to control and adjust multiple faces, like in this example where we can rotate the texture for the top and bottom material. At the minute we're looking very clean and it's not really metallic. Jump into the render view for a better look. Let's alter the material properties. Go to the editor icon and reset this to the shader editor. This is a node-based version of the properties window. It may look a bit odd, but it gives us a lot more control to our materials. First, let's dial up the value of the metallic and specular to create some shine. For the roughness, I think it'd be good to add some patches of rust. Press Shift and A to bring up the node search and type color ramp. Now link the color output to the roughness input. Let's add another node with Shift and A, this time finding Musgrave texture. Link this to the color ramp. It doesn't look like much, but by altering the scale, detail, dimension, and the lacunarity, you'll receive these patches of scratches and damage. is currently too reflective. So to change this, we'll raise the black of the color ramp to an off-white. There we go, much better. This now looks like it's been around for a while. As this rust is a new element, we'll have to bake this. To do this, we'll need an image to project it onto. Press Shift and A and search for Image Texture. We'll place this down and select New. Let's also give it a rename, Roughness. To see our image, slide open a new viewer and we can change the editor type to UV and then load Roughness. We're going to need a plane of similar shape to bake this onto. In our viewport, let's create a plane and scale on the Y-axis to match up our container. Head down to the Material tab and create a new material, naming it again Roughness. Here we're just going to add an image texture and load Roughness, saying roughness so much. Select both the models and head to the Render tab. The default is currently in Eevee, though in order to bake, we'll switch this to Cycles as Eevee doesn't have the option at this time. Head down to Bake and open Type. If we were creating a texture from scratch, here's where we'd find all the options for the various layers. We are going to need Roughness for today. Be sure to also enable Selected to Active. Time to throw it in the oven and hit Bake. You can now see our UVs have changed, revealing the roughness. We want to go up to the Image tab and save this with our file for when we eventually head into HitFilm. What we have now is good enough to be a batch of models in distance, but this is merely the beginning. If you head on over to our other tutorial, we'll be going over modeling techniques to add depth and detail using the collection of cutting tools. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to avoid missing out on any other masterclass tutorials. We'll see you next time.